We'll talk about a preliminary matter. If I ever get a phone call while I'm on lunch that you two are fighting and acting a fool, you will not be happy. I don't know how you all ended up in the same place or the same area, but that is 100,000% disrespectful, and it will not be tolerated. I'm not your mama. Don't play with me. You all are in here with charges of, and you acting a damn fool fighting in the back.
The group, it says, began with students from Frost Middle School, but quickly spread to other schools. The group, according to the letter, hangs out on 38th Street in abandoned, boarded-up homes and recruits members via social media. To get in, you must assault someone, and to stay in, you must sell drugs.
Well, Doug, investigators believe that these two men affiliated with the Victory Park Crips gang is responsible for a large number of the deaths in the city, which is why they're trying to bring attention to this case. Investigators tell me the sooner they get them off the streets, the better.
MPD and the FBI announced the indictment of 10 people from the Everybody Shine Together gang for federal gun and drug charges. Investigators say the group is a major Louisville gang fueled by drug money. The FBI says Devonzo Summer and Barry Reed,
one of those people accused of being involved in that criminal activity. The man also arrested, charged, and pleading guilty for the of Akeem Livers. Raekwon Burse. Just months after pleading guilty, he's now a key figure in a new case. Prosecutors charging him and 10 others as being a part of a gang committing crimes in Lexington.
Police say they've arrested 6 people: Sean Martin, Dorius Robinson, Tevin Smizer, Justin Walls, and Brandon Walton. Police say they also arrested Nathan Walls through the course of the investigation. 2 of the suspects, Smizer and Walls, have also been charged with murder in a December shooting.
This month, the 4 men were sentenced to federal prison time. One gang completely eradicated, but still just a small example of a much larger issue in our city.
The announced 11 alleged gang members or gang associates are facing federal charges, including armed drug trafficking. 3 others have also been charged but are still on the wanted list.
Louisville has always been a city built on movement. Founded in 1778 on the edge of the Falls of the Ohio, it grew into a riverport powerhouse where commerce, migration, and opportunity flowed through the same narrow corridors. It's the home of Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby, a place where bourbon heritage and factory grit sit side by side, where the skyline meets the water, and the neighborhoods carry their own identities like flags. Louisville also punches above its weight culturally, giving the world icons like Muhammad Ali, journalist Diane Sawyer, author Hunter S. Thompson, and more recently stars like Jennifer Lawrence and rapper Jack Harlow. It's a city that can feel celebratory and historic in one breath, and tense and unpredictable in the next. That contrast is what makes these Louisville gang and crew cases hit so hard. The stories aren't just crime reports. They're snapshots of how street conflicts and underground economies take shape inside a real American city.
Well, Doug, investigators believe that these 2 men affiliated with the Victory Park Crips gang is responsible for a large number of the deaths in the city, which is why they're trying to bring attention to this case. 27-year-old Jacoby Summers and 28-year-old Jerlyn Horton.
Neither of them are strangers to law enforcement. They have been involved in criminal activity here in Louisville.
They have violated their supervised release and they're wanted for bond violation. And now they have caught the attention of LMPD, ATF, and the U.S. Marshals.
The older members of the gang, a lot of them are locked up or they're have gotten out and have moved on.
And now they're trying to catch the next generation of the Victory Park Crips.
We've already seen the next generation starting to step up.
2 Louisville fugitives are on the run for nearly 2 years, finally caught in California. ATF agents arrested Jacoby Summers and Jerlyn Horton after a 2-hour standoff at a luxury high-rise apartment complex in Long Beach, California. They were wanted on federal drug charges in November of 2021. As investigators tried to arrest them, they rammed police vehicles and got away during a high-speed chase. Investigators say the 2 men were involved in the Victory Park Crips, a local gang.
Horton's criminal history dates back over a decade ago, facing his first felony charges when he was just a teenager. He's been in and out of jail since then, mostly on drug charges. Court records show he was on LMPD's radar for many years, specifically by members of the department's 9th Mobile Division, previously known as the Viper Squad. Another member of the Victory Park Crips was also convicted in this federal drug trafficking case, Jacoby Summers.
Louisville's West End has long been shaped by neighborhood pride and survival, but federal investigators say that in 2017, a quieter, more dangerous economy was operating in parallel. A straw purchase gun pipeline, where people with clean records allegedly bought firearms on paper and funneled them to convicted felons who couldn't legally possess them. The case broke wide open with a 40-count federal indictment unsealed after a multi-agency investigation tied to alleged associates of the Victory Park Crips. Investigators say the plan was straightforward: buy fast, buy clean, then redirect the guns. When arrests were made, officials reported seizing about 32 firearms, ammunition, and even explosive materials, evidence they framed as a public safety threat, not just paperwork violations. 5 defendants were named: Jacoby Summers, Shelby Strong, Jerlin Horton, Derek Hammond, and Lakeisha Watts. Authorities described Hammond, Summers, and Horton as associates of the Victory Park Crips, with Watts tied through Horton and Strong tied through Hammond. The core charge for all 5 centered on conspiracy to possess firearms as prohibited persons, meaning the alleged end result was armed felons, even if purchases started with legal buyers. The indictment also laid out different roles. Strong faced allegations tied to unlicensed dealing and false statements. Horton faced an allegation involving explosive material, and several defendants faced obstruction-related allegations, reflecting prosecutors' claim that the scheme included efforts to interfere once law enforcement closed in. What later became public is that Jerlin Horton and Jacoby Summers surfaced again in a separate federal outcome tied to armed drug trafficking, and, for Summers, escape. Horton was later sentenced to 354 months, while Summers
And
pleaded
it was
guilty.
a year ago today, 16-year-old Tyree Smith was shot as he waited for the school bus. It was a senseless act of violence that shocked our community. On September 22nd, 2021, several JCPS students were waiting at the bus stop when a car drove by and started firing at them. The kids ran for cover and 3 of them were shot. Tyree was one of those 3. He later died from his injuries. His mother called Tyree a happy, healthy kid who was on the right path. She said he didn't hang out with boys who had guns and he stayed out of trouble. Teenagers accused of shooting at a boy at a JCPS bus stop want their cases separated. You may remember 16-year-old Tyree Smith was shot waiting for his bus in 2021. The other two 16-year-olds were arrested in this case. That's Damarian Moore and Mackay Cable. In the investigation, police found the boys drove by in a Jeep, allegedly spraying the bus stop with bullets. They're then accused of targeting someone at the bus stop, but not the boy who was hit.
You have on an orange jumpsuit. You have handcuffs on, and you in the back acting like damn animals. What's the problem? I will hold you in criminal contempt.
She said no matter what, the 2 teens will be tried together for the bus stop shooting.
Recent riot at a juvenile detention center with reports of a sexual assault is the latest in a string of issues causing the governor to start a center for girls only.
Fights, fires, and most recently a riot at a juvenile detention center with reports of a sexual assault of a girl in custody. At least 2 guards were taken to the hospital with serious injuries.
You have handcuffs on, and you in the back acting like damn animals. What's the problem? You don't have to like each other. You don't have to get along. You can have whatever defense that you want, and you can have whatever defense that you want. Y'all in court. Y'all are not here to be friends. I don't care what your defense is. You can say he did it. You can say they did it. You can say I did it. I don't care.
The Morion Moore's story is one of those Louisville cases where the same name keeps resurfacing first in street violence, then inside a juvenile facility, while families wait through years of delays as prosecutors and defense attorneys sift through massive evidence. Prosecutors have linked Moore, along with co-defendant Maggie Cable, in 2 of the most serious shootings, to a run of alleged violence that unfolded before either teen turned 18. The most decisive courtroom movement so far hasn't come from Louisville at all, but from Adair County. It begins in March 2021, with prosecutors alleging Moore was involved in a shooting near South Preston Street and Eastern Parkway that left a teenager injured. Then came the demise that shook the city. Just after dawn, students gathered at a bus stop in Louisville's Russell neighborhood, a corner described in later reporting as dark and poorly lit. Prosecutors say Moore and Cable arrived in a stolen Jeep Cherokee and fired into the crowd. Tyree Smith, 16, METHIS demise, and 2 other students were hit but survived. Prosecutors have emphasized that Tyree was not the intended target, more a teenager caught in the crossfire of someone else's conflict. 2 months later, prosecutors say the violence struck again on Thanksgiving morning 2021. Cortez Duncan Jr. was found shot in an alley in the Shawnee area. Minutes later, police responded to another call nearby and found Cable suffering from a gunshot wound to his chest. Moore was also at the location, and reporting on the case describes police finding him hiding inside the house. And the legal system didn't match it. By early 2023, prosecutors said the Smith-Duncan prosecutions were slowed by the sheer volume of discovery, thousands of pages, and multiple videos, complicated further by the fact that the teens were held in juvenile facilities far from Louisville. Trial dates repeatedly shifted, leaving families stuck in a long cycle of court settings, continuances, and unanswered timelines. The November 2022 riot at the Adair Youth Development Center. Trial testimony described a youth worker being assaulted and having keys taken, cells opening, and detained youths moving through areas they weren't supposed to access, followed by assaults during the chaos. Testimony also described a 17-year-old girl being led into a cell and repeatedly raped and sodomized, with surveillance video used to corroborate parts of what happened. The jury found Moore guilty of first-degree rape, complicity to first-degree sodomy, promoting a sexual performance by a minor, first-degree riot, and 2 counts of fourth-degree assault, and recommended a total of 25 years.
It sounded like somebody was in a war zone, like seriously.
The bullet holes at the Enclave apartments show the extent of the damage from the shootout in the early morning hours of New Year's Day.
It would sound like shooting back and forth. It wasn't just like shooting in the air. It sounded like shooting like back and forth. You could hear it. And then it sounded like people were moving around. Like, I don't know if they were chasing each other, but that's what it sounded like to me.
Police say they've arrested 6 people: Sean Martin, Dorius Robinson, Tevin Smizer, Justin Walls, and Brandon Walton. Police say they also arrested Nathan Walls through the course of the investigation. 2 of the suspects, Smizer and Walls, have also been charged with in a December shooting. Other people that we spoke to who didn't want to appear on camera say they saw 2 groups shooting at each other. One of them was over here at this parking lot of the Enclave apartment complex. Another group was over here in this parking lot of a shopping center next door. LMPD says nearly 600 rounds were fired in all, and yet they say no one was injured.
In the early hours of New Year's weekend, Louisville police say 2 groups opened fire near the Enclave at Breckenridge Apartments in the Hikes Point area and exchanged so. Intense investigators estimated nearly 600 rounds were fired, with evidence suggesting more than 40 different guns were involved. Apartments and vehicles were hit, but almost unbelievably, police said no one was shot. As the case developed publicly, investigators said they recovered multiple guns and stolen vehicles, framing it as a major public safety event, even without a death toll. Police announced 6 arrests tied to the shootout. The charges varied by person, but reporting on the arrests described a mix that included felon in possession, receiving, stolen property, drug possession, trafficking allegations, and related offenses connected to what investigators say they uncovered during the follow-up. Justin Walls and Tevin Smizer were also being investigated and charged in a separate homicide from December 2022 in Louisville's Saint Denis neighborhood. In that case, police said the victim was found shot to death, and investigators alleged Walls and Smizer were tied to the shooting and later moves involving stolen vehicles. A third suspect was later arrested in that deletion investigation, showing how the New Year's shootout arrests overlap with a second violent crime case already
A
unfolding.
group of middle school students who call themselves YNO. There's this video, a mob of teens going on a citywide crime spree back on March 22nd, and now there's this leaked FBI letter detailing that night. But those with ties to the group named in the attack, YNO, standing for Young and Off That, say it's not a gang.
I'm a music artist and a promoter.
Shermont Mayfield, known as Young Commercial, claims he knows members of YNO, which he says began as a rap group.
So it's easy to say, it's coming from one gang, it's coming from one group. You ain't got to worry, we're going to take them off the streets. It's not even a real gang.
In this confidential letter, the FBI details information received in a recent investigation. The group, it says, began with students from Frost Middle School, but quickly spread to other schools. The group, according to the letter, hangs out on 38th Street in abandoned, boarded-up homes and recruits members via social media. To get in, you must assault someone, and to stay in, you must sell drugs. It says the group is, quote, armed in a major way and offers up this dangerous promise. There have been rumblings about YNO members planning on going deep at the upcoming Derby parade. Specific plans for acts of violence or other criminal activity by YNO at the parade are currently unknown. Young Commercial admits the group was at the waterfront on March 22nd, not for a gang fight like the email says, but a memorial for McQuail Offit, the young man fatally stabbed on a TARP bus who had ties to YNO. He says he does worry about additional violence and who will be blamed for it.
Thank you, Lauren. Louisville police announced today 2 more arrests in connection to that citywide crime spree on March 22nd. A 15-year-old was arrested Monday for rioting and robbery. Another teenager, a 14-year-old, was arrested yesterday on multiple counts of robbery, rioting, and burglary. In all, 3 adults and 4 teenagers have been charged.
What started as a big crowd of teenagers around Waterfront Park Big 4 Bridge quickly turned into a roaming, hours-long wave of chaos downtown, reported as dozens of calls, incidents involving robberies, assaults, and vandalism as groups moved from spot to spot, including areas like Bader's Food Mart and nearby downtown intersections. Police accounts and local reporting describe it as a night where dispersing the crowd didn't end the problem, it scattered it, and smaller clusters kept causing incidents across the city core. Days later, the story took an even darker turn when an FBI memo circulated among law enforcement alleging a middle school-based group called Young and Off That YNO was involved, tied to Frost Middle School, and that there were tensions with another group described as TYS, but the FBI also emphasized this was unverified intelligence and was being evaluated for credibility. The memo also floated motives like revenge connected to the TRC bus stabbing of McQuail Offit and mentioned rumblings of possible violence at the Pegasus parade, claims police. As for who got charged, the early arrests included Jury Samarchi, who police said was detained during the night and accused of carrying a gun, with reports listing charges such as carrying a concealed deadly weapon and unlawful transaction with a minor shortly after. Shaquaz Allen and Tyrone Booker were arrested and charged in connection with violence that night, including allegations tied to an attack on a woman in a vehicle. And police also filed additional juvenile charges, including a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old accused of robberies connected to the same night.
In some cases, a street crew, as they're often called, will be based out of a single apartment complex, using fear to intimidate innocent people to keep quiet. The Ross crew, as they're known, was a family, selling drugs out of 3 apartment complexes in Newburgh. This month, the 4 men were sentenced to federal prison time. One gang completely eradicated, but still just a small example of a much larger issue in our city.
In Louisville's Newburgh area, federal prosecutors said this wasn't just one apartment with drugs. It was a small trafficking ring operating out of multiple apartments, with coke moving through the neighborhood while a stash of guns stayed close enough to protect the operation. By the time the case hit sentencing, the government's story was clear: drugs on hand, firearms in reach, and 4 men originally from Mississippi, living in Louisville, held responsible for keeping that pipeline running. The 4 defendants, dubbed as the Ross Boys, Seiko Ross, Robert Ross, Corey Ross, and Andre Ross, and all were sentenced in district court after pleading guilty. The attorney's office said the men were sentenced both for drug trafficking conduct and for illegally possessing firearms after prior felony convictions. Seiko Ross received the heaviest term, 14 years, 7 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. Robert Ross was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison with 5 years of supervised release. Corey Ross was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison with 5 years of supervised release. Andre Ross received 4 years, 3 months in federal prison followed by 3 years of supervised release.
U.S. Attorney Russell Coleman made it a point today of saying Black Lives Matter. That's why he spent the past year organizing a task force to go into predominantly black neighborhoods and arrest violent offenders he says are ruining lives.
After more than a year-long investigation, he announced 11 alleged gang members or gang associates are facing federal charges, including armed drug trafficking. 3 others have also been charged but are still on the wanted list.
Prosecutors said a multi-year, multi-agency effort focused on violent street gangs led to a federal grand jury indictment and a wave of arrests tied to an armed drug conspiracy in Louisville. Federal prosecutors alleged the conspiracy ran for years and blended drug trafficking and firearms, the kind of case they argue fuels street violence because the drugs generate cash. Guns enforce territory, and conflicts spiral into shootings. Attorney Russell Coleman framed it as an impact strategy. Take down groups, not just individuals. The government alleges an organized network distributing deadly narcotics. The indictment references fentanyl and other drugs. While multiple defendants, many of whom were legally prohibited, were allegedly armed, with additional counts aimed at firearms possession and related conduct tied to the conspiracy. The original coverage you're quoting is, so it does not contain final sentences for everyone because sentencing only happens after convictions. What is publicly documented later is that 2 defendants, Frank Trammell Jr. and Khalid Ashani Rahim II, were found guilty in federal court in connection with the
Just after midnight on a Friday in November of 2020, police heard gunshots and found 24-year-old Akeem Lee Livers found shot in a back parking lot near the 21C Hotel. 30 minutes later. The years that followed some of Lexington's most violent on record.
This Georgetown Street area is an area that Lexington Police's gang unit says that they have been investigating for criminal activity for at least the past 10 years. An area that the community clearly also recognizes the violence.
One of those people accused of being involved in that criminal activity. The man also arrested, charged, and pleading guilty for the death of Akeem Livers. Raekwon Burse. Just months after pleading guilty, he's now a key figure in a new case. Prosecutors charging him and 10 others as being a part of a gang committing crimes in Lexington. But
11 individuals are facing uncommon charges for their alleged involvement in an organized criminal gang syndicate operating in Lexington's West End. According to court documents filed in 2020, Lexington Police's gang unit has investigated criminal activity in the area for over a decade. The neighborhood spanning Georgetown Street to Newtown Pike has long been referred to as the West End. The syndicate's alleged activities include drug trafficking, firearm-related crimes, wanton endangerment, and violent offenses. These crimes were reportedly carried out by smaller gang factions such as the Down Bottom Gang, West Side Crips, Rollin 60s Crips, Click Tight, Squad, G-Fam, and others. Over time, authorities claim these smaller groups have become more organized, banding together to push back against rival gangs dominating Lexington's north and east sides. One prominent figure, Raekwon Burse, pled guilty to an amended charge of second-degree manslaughter for the 2020 demise of Akeem Livers. Police have identified Burse as one of the leaders of the West End Alliance. Police relied on social media posts, cell phone records, and vehicle searches to gather evidence against the suspects. This is not a charge we use lightly, said Fayette County Prosecutor Kim Baird. The statute is designed to focus on groups threatening community safety, but we must ensure every element is met before presenting the case to a grand jury. The statute has only been used twice in Lexington. The first case, initiated in 2021, involved 14 defendants tied to alleged East End gang activities and is still ongoing.
The Authorities say they are all members of a gang known as Everybody Shines Together, or EST. 10 people indicted on various drug charges, including conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute. They also face firearms charges, and authorities also confiscated $160,000 in cash. The arrest coming after a months-long investigation.
Taking off the whole group and charging them all at one time.
The arrest began last month when Eric Mosley was taken into custody. The most recent arrest on Tuesday was his brother Rico's. Still, 3 suspects remain on the run.
The FBI is still looking for one man accused of being part of a violent gang. LMPD and the FBI announced the indictment of 10 people from the Everybody Shine Together gang for federal gun and drug charges. Investigators say the group is a major Louisville gang fueled by drug money. The FBI says Devonzo Summer and Barry Reed, who they were originally looking for, are now behind bars. 7 others were arrested last month. Police are still looking for Casey Jones.
Multiple alleged members of the Louisville-based gang, Everybody Shines Together, EST, are now facing federal charges following a series of arrests that uncovered drugs, firearms, and thousands of dollars in cash. According to federal prosecutors, the suspects were involved in distribution of drugs. 6. In total, 10 individuals have been charged with conspiracy to distribute drugs. The FBI and Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, have identified all suspects, though only 3 RICOs more are currently in custody. 4 others were released on bond after their arrests. The gang's name, Everybody Shines Together, shares its title with the business of popular Louisville rapper SG, George Stone. However, Stone was not arrested in connection with this case. 2 of his business associates, Ricos Mosley and Eric Mosley, were among those arrested. Eric Mosley, who identifies as SG's manager, and Ricos Mosley now face minimum sentences of 10 and 15 years, respectively, if convicted on weapons and drug-related charges. This indictment is part of Project Safe Neighborhoods, a federal initiative designed to dismantle violent criminal organizations in Louisville. As part of the investigation, federal agents executed search warrants that resulted in the seizure of a kilo, firearms, a stolen vehicle, and $160,000 in cash. Authorities also revealed ties between the gang and Kevin Lawless, an alleged gang member accused of the demise of 3-year-old Trinity Randolph and her father Brandon Waddles in 2020. Lawless, who was on probation for an attempted deletion conviction at the time of the crime. Everybody Shines Together Entertainment, SG's company, was used to provide bail money for Lawless when he was being held on a $300,000 bond. Stone alluded to bailing out Lawless in his song, Sky Dweller, released in July. In the lyrics, he references Lawless's $1 million bond, rapping, "They want $1 million for Lil Cotta. No, I'm coming to get you, baby."
Top attorney says a group of gang members now face charges. Here's a list of people recently indicted: Jacob Bell, Lawrence Bibbs, Robert Thomas, Thomas Wallace, Reginald Webster Jr., Malik Birdsong, and Demetrius Wiley Jr. Commonwealth Attorney Jarena Weathers referred to these 7 people as gang members and said they were found with stolen cars and guns.
Individuals have been arrested and charged in connection with various crimes, including weapons possession, drug offenses, and receiving stolen property. Wiley was arrested on January 8 and faces charges of possession of a handgun by a convicted felon, drug possession, trafficking in marijuana, fleeing police, and receiving stolen property valued at $10,000 or more. His bond was set at $10,000. Thomas Wallace, 20, was arrested on April 26 and charged with 3 counts of receiving stolen property valued at $10,000 or more, possession of a stolen firearm, and fleeing police. According to police, Wallace was spotted in a vehicle stolen from Shelby County. During the stop, officers saw 2 handguns in plain view, one of which was confirmed stolen. Wallace fled on foot but escaped in another stolen vehicle later recovered in Memphis, Tennessee. Reginald Webster Jr., 23, was arrested on the same day as Wallace and charged with 3 counts of possession of a handgun by a convicted felon, 3 counts of receiving stolen property worth $10,000 or more, fleeing police, and criminal mischief. Police said Webster fled on foot across Dixie Highway after being stopped in a stolen car but was apprehended by officers. While in custody, Webster reportedly damaged the interview room wall and urinated on the carpet. Malik Birdsong, 20, was arrested on July 31 and charged with receiving stolen property worth $10,000 or more. Birdsong was seen arriving at a home on Dearborn Avenue in a stolen Ford Edge from Shepherdsville. During a search of the residence, police found the vehicle's key hidden behind drywall in the basement crawl space. Lawrence Bibbs, 20, was arrested on August 23 and charged with receiving stolen property worth $10,000 or more and 2 counts of fleeing police. Police said Bibbs was spotted in a stolen car and fled at high speeds through heavy traffic. He later abandoned the car and entered another stolen vehicle before fleeing again with passengers. Bibbs and his accomplices, including Robert Thomas, Thomas Wallace, and Reginald Webster Jr., were eventually found and arrested. Jacob Bell, 21, was arrested on August 29 and charged with 2 counts of receiving stolen property worth $10,000 or more. Police said Bell was seen driving a stolen Ford Fusion from St. Matthews and a stolen Jeep Wagoneer from Detroit, Michigan. Robert Thomas, 21, was arrested on October 8 and faces charges of 2 counts of fleeing police, 5 counts of receiving stolen property worth $10,000 or more, drug possession, trafficking in marijuana, and tampering with physical evidence.
Taken together, these cases tell a single larger story about Louisville. When guns become easy to move, drugs become easy to sell, and crews become the social structure, violence stops being random and starts looking organized. Whether it's straw purchases allegedly stalking the streets, a chaotic exchange of gunfire that turns an apartment complex into a battlefield, or a trafficking ring built around weapons and supply, the pattern is the same. The city isn't dealing with one bad night. It's dealing with networks, retaliation, and the kind of momentum that can pull teenagers into adult-level consequences before they're even old enough to vote. And the courtroom reality matters just as much as the street narrative. Some of these defendants have already been sentenced, others are still fighting charges or waiting on trials, and every allegation still has to survive evidence, procedure, and a verdict. But from a documentary standpoint, the theme is clear. Louisville's story is not just the headlines, it's the impact strategy behind federal cases, the ripple effects across neighborhoods, and the way one investigation often connects to another. Under the bright lights of Derby Week and the pride of a historic river city, Louisville is still battling what so many cities are battling right now. How to cut the pipelines that keep feeding the next shooting, the next indictment, and the next family left waiting for answers.